And we have a quorum present. I will call the meeting of the January 25th Plan Commission meeting to order. First, we have some information from our technical facilitator.
Welcome to our virtual Plan Commission meeting. We're going to cover a few basic items before beginning. If you lose connection at any point during the meeting, you can reconnect by clicking on the link or calling the number in your original email. To members and city staff, members, if you are able, please activate your video and keep it on for the duration of the meeting. Staff, if you are able, please activate your video when you are speaking. The chair, clerk, and technical facilitator are responsible for muting and unmuting committee members. Use the raise hand feature when you'd like to be recognized to speak, ask questions, or request a roll call vote. During any roll call, all panelists will be muted briefly. Staff, click raise hand when you are asked a question. The chair will do their best to call on committee members in the order in which the hands are raised. Lowering your hand will take you out of the queue. Members of the public who have registered to speak. The name you entered in Zoom must match the name you entered in registration. You will remain muted until called upon. The clerk will tell you when your time is up. After speaking, a member of the body may ask you a question. If you need to share documentation with the board, please send it to the email listed in today's agenda. Chair, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I do not see any registrants for public comment. Is that correct, Ms. Stouter? Okay, thank you. Are there any communications, disclosures, or recusals? Members of the body should make any required disclosures or recusals under the city's ethics code. Any disclosures or recusals? I see no raised hands. Next, we have minutes for the December 16th, 2020 special meeting of the Plan Commission, and also minutes of the January 11th regular meeting of the Plan Commission. Are there any additions or corrections to either set of minutes? Seeing no raised hands, is there a motion? Commissioner Cantrell. Moved, and Commissioner Solheim seconded approval of the minutes. We will now come to a vote. If I don't see a raised hand to object, I will assume unanimous passage. Seeing no raised hands to object, the motion passes unanimously. Our next regular meetings are February 11th and February 22nd, and March 8th and March 22nd. Okay, the next thing we will take up is the consent agenda. It is the custom of the Plan Commission to remove from the agenda those items on which the staff believes an applicant has had sufficient review to warrant approval with all of the conditions placed upon it by various city departments, on which the applicant accepts those conditions, and there are no individuals who have registered to speak in opposition to the item. These items are placed on the consent agenda, and they are addressed at the beginning of the public hearing section of our meeting. People here on those items then are free to sign off. Of the items before us today, the following are proposed for the consent agenda. Agenda item 2, 3, 4, 9, and 12 for referral, 13, 14, 15, and 16 for referral. Are there any requests for separation of any of those items? Seeing no raised hands, I will read into the record the items for referral. Agenda item 2, Legistar 63433, discontinuing and vacating multiple public unimproved street and alley rights-of-way within the plat of Village of Autumn Lake, replat to allow replatting of a portion of the development in the City of Madison, Dane County, 17th Alder District. Next is agenda item 3, Legistar 62966, creating section 28.069 to create the regional mixed use district and amending portions of the Madison general ordinances to add relevant provisions related to the newly created RMX district. Agenda item 9, Legistar 632, oops, I missed 4. Agenda item 4, Legistar 63436, amending section 28.02 of the Madison General Ordinances to amend and replace maps for wells 6, 7, 8, 9, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, and 30, and repealing sections 28.102 paren 9 and 28.102 paren 20. Agenda item 9, Legistar 63211, 100 North Hamilton Street, 4th Alder District, consideration of a demolition permit to demolish a portion of a museum to allow outdoor exhibition space and a new loading zone. Agenda item 12, Legistar 63309, to be referred to March 22nd, 2021 at the request of the applicant. Agenda item 13, Legistar 63310, located at 2240 Keyes Avenue, 13th Alder District, consideration of a demolition permit to demolish a single-family residence and construct a new single-family residence. Agenda item 14, Legistar 63474, located at 3401 University Avenue, 11th Alder District, consideration of a demolition permit to demolish a street-facing facade of a convenience store as part of a building expansion. Agenda item 15, Legistar 63475, located at 4624 Monona Drive, 15th Alder District, consideration of a demolition permit to demolish a street-facing facade of a convenience store as part of a building expansion. And finally, agenda item 16, Legistar 63209, referral with no date specified at the request of the applicant. Do I have a motion for approval? So moved by Commissioner Cantrell. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Solheim. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, I will, yes?
Is the referral of item 12, is it to February 22nd or to March 22nd?
That's to March 22nd. That change was necessitated by timing of various things. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Okay, I will assume unanimous consent of that motion unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, the motion passes unanimously. Next, we will consider agenda item 2, Legistar 63433. Oops, sorry. That one was on the consent. Next, we will consider agenda item 5, Legistar 63457, substitute, repealing and recreating subsection entitled Housing Cooperative of Section 28.151 of Madison General Ordinances, amending the definition of housing cooperative in Section 28.211 and amending Table 28C1, Table 28D2, Table 28E2, Table 28F1, and Table 28G1 of the Madison General Ordinances. And I believe that Mr. Tucker will be providing a summary of what's going on here. Mr. Tucker.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Plan Commission, for your consideration of this item tonight. This amendment here is a culmination of about a year and a half's worth of work that we put in with some former alders, current alders, and the idea originally was to move forward to make the city's regulations for housing cooperatives a little bit more equitable relative to the regulations in place for multifamily type development relative to when triggers for conditional uses are met. However, it's with the passage of time, it's also migrated a little bit further to a citywide approach to allow housing cooperatives basically wherever housing or dwelling units or single family, two family, multifamily, and lodging house type uses are allowed. Being that housing cooperative is just a way for a group to own dwellings within which they reside. So this amendment does a variety of things. It streamlines the regulations and it moves to more of a basis of the type of housing, not the zoning district within which the housing exists. So it makes reference to single, two, and multifamily housing and lodging houses. By effect, it's going to allow cooperative housing in all the districts where housing is allowed. That's why there's a number of changes to the tables. It's establishing limits on the cooperative housing in low density neighborhoods. That's typically your single family type neighborhoods to 10 persons with a allowance to exceed that by conditional use. As I mentioned, it does create a bit of a more equitable situation for the numbers of people that can occupy a housing cooperative relative to a sort of a comparison to those that can live in a typical dwelling unit. And there are some examples that I outlined in the staff memo that we sent to you folks over the weekend where that would kick in. It also raises the point at which conditional use is triggered to 2 points, actually, either double the number of pre-existing bedrooms or 30 persons. And that is in a cooperative that's comprised of over 2 family up. And it also has a correlating tool for applying the bulk requirements. That's the setbacks, lot coverage, if you will, usable open space to fit into our inventory use chart. So it's a pretty comprehensive update to the regulations for housing cooperatives. And I am available to answer any questions after the public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Tucker. I will open the public hearing, and we do have a registrant wishing to speak, David Sparer, 1842 Jennifer Street, Madison, in support, wishing to speak, representing the Madison Area Co-op Housing Alliance. Mr. Sparer.
Thank you. Let's see. Don't see myself.
Yeah, you're on, so go ahead.
Okay. Well, hello, everybody. Thank you for considering this and my chance to speak. As a number of you know, I've been working on matters related to housing co-ops for quite a long time and have been part of this effort as well. The Madison Area Co-op Housing Alliance, the acronym pronounced as MACHA, is just a group of individuals. I'm just one of them who are interested in helping co-ops be able to expand and be present in more neighborhoods. And we've been meeting with Matt Tucker and other staff and alders to come up with these proposals. And it seems that it has pretty universal approval and consideration. So I'm here just to let you know that the group of co-op organizers, MACHA, has been working on this, and this draft does meet all our interests and concerns. So we're happy with it. I guess one thing I'll just note for people in case it's a concern of does this allow co-op houses of just any old size to be all of a sudden in different areas? And it does not, because it entirely is referencing conversion of existing housing to a housing co-op. And so it all has to do with buildings that are already there. And the question is, how many individuals can a co-op house have as occupant owner members in that house that's already there? So that's what this is about, and it addresses it in that way. I could answer people's questions if they have any about individual parts of the ordinance, rather than just kind of rattle on here about how much in favor I am about it. So I think I'll leave it at that and answer any questions people might have of me.
Thank you, Mr. Spar. We have one other registrant who is available to answer questions. Abby Davidson, 1025 High Street, Madison, in support, not wishing to speak, but available to answer questions. Are there questions either of Mr. Spar or Ms. Davidson? Seeing no raised hands, no questions, I will close the public hearing. Are there questions of staff? Commissioner Cantrell.
This is from Mr. Tucker. Can you further explain how the number of individuals in a single family home would be treated as a co-op versus a single family, just a typical single family?
Sure. So the calculator for the number of individuals will relate to the pre-existing building, and it's basically the number that is used for a calculator is the number 2 times the number of bedrooms. So you would need a house with a lot of bedrooms or converted to a lot of bedrooms to have one that's over 10. And there are also some building code related complications that come up when you start to have larger numbers of individuals living in a single family dwelling that is built under the 1 and 2 family code. That's another thing we kind of think about. So you've got the calculator, but you also have a code related matter where you'll move into a different building code, which is very difficult to potentially modify the building by having more individuals, even if you had more bedrooms.
So for a 3-bedroom house, 2.5 times would be 6, 7.
Yeah, you could have up to 10. Just a second. I'm going to open let me get to the language here. Just 1 second. Let's see here. Okay. Single family dwellings, 2 times the number of legal bedrooms prior to conversion, or that But any occupancy over 10 persons requires conditional use approval. So you'd said a 3-bedroom, that would be 6 persons.
Oh, 6. Okay. And they can all be unrelated or
Yes.
a mix of related and unrelated?
They could be a mix or they could be unrelated.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Are there any other questions of staff? Seeing none, I would be looking for a motion. Commissioner Cantrell?
I will move approval of Legistar 63457.
And Commissioner Alder Rummel?
Second.
Did you want to speak to your motion, Commissioner Cantrell?
No, thank you.
Are there any comments or discussion points? Alder Rummel.
Thank you, Chair Zellers. Although I'm not the primary sponsor and didn't spend the last amount of time working on this, I am so excited to see this ordinance, zoning text amendment, because I'm probably the alder here around the longest who knows how hard it was to get to this point. I think it took 10 years. We started kind of with a little baby step, and there were alders had concerns, and that's as far as we got for a really long time. So I just want people to know it wasn't like through lack of interest or trying, but it was sort of the moment we were in, and now we're in a new moment. And thank you for all your work. That's it.
Thank you, Alder. Commissioner Sundquist.
Yeah, I was also around for that earlier step, and it was, it was during the ZCRAC time when we were trying to move all kinds of things forward, and it was pretty easy to veto almost anything because we didn't have time to get bogged down in anything that was really contentious. So, and this, I don't know that it was really that contentious, but there were concerns, and so it was, Alder Rummel's exactly right. There was a baby step, and it wasn't ideal. And so thank you to Alder Rummel and Alder Heck for working on this, and Alder Foster and any other alders who've been working on it, as well as staff. It's a long time coming. We have we keep talking about affordable housing. This is another tool in the toolbox. And as Mr. Tucker said, I mean, it really just sort of levels the playing field between different types of multifamily housing. It's kind of crazy that you could have an apartment building in a zoning district, but not a co-op arrangement in the same area, even. So, great work, everyone, and I'm so glad that this is finally coming forward.
Thank you, Commissioner. Alder Heck.
Thank you. I would echo what Commissioner Sundquist and Alder Rummel said. I'd also like to just thank Matcha for persisting and pushing us over the last, it's probably been a couple of years since I've been alder, we've been talking about this, and it was really helpful for them to keep knocking on the door. And I'd also like to thank Mr. Tucker for putting in many, many hours on thinking about all the options and trying to make this as equitable as possible. So that he really was a big help. I'd also like to offer a small amendment if it's appropriate. And I'm not sure as if offering this amendment would be a substitute or an amendment, but I'm going to try for an amendment and see how it goes. There's just a small change that I'm proposing to, let me get to the right section. it's in, there's a list of things under supplemental regulations, subchapter 28J. This is item C. It currently reads, when housing cooperatives are established within single-family dwellings, the single-family appearance and function of the building shall not be altered through the addition of entrances or kitchens. And I'd like to just strike the last two words, or kitchens, so that it is possible for, a small kitchen, let's say a wet bar in the basement or something in a common area could be altered. So I think that would be a good correction. And maybe Ms. Dowder has advice upon how that should be handled.
I think it can be moved as an amendment here at Plan Commission, and then if approved, Plan Commission would simply forward that recommendation to the council.
Okay.
So is there a second to that motion seconded by Alder Lemmer? Okay, let's have a vote on that amendment then. And I will assume unanimous consent of that amendment unless I see a raised hand to object. Alder Rummel, did you wish to speak to the amendment?
I just have a question. We're in my landmarks ordinance review pad, or just being in a, knowing that in a landmark district you can add a door. I'm just wondering, I just love to hear hearing a little bit more about the motivation for that in general, just so I understand. I know what taking it away on, I don't need a motivation for that, but why it's in there in the first place would help me.
Mr. Tucker, could you address that?
Yeah, sure. So the idea was just to be cautious about having these appear to be other than single family dwellings. So putting multiple front entrances or multiple doors to have them appear to be different than that. That's the reason why that language existed in the original ordinance that came through in 2012 as part of the zoning code rewrite. So we didn't think there was a reason to take that part out to make these sort of continue to appear as they are like single family homes. Now, let me make it clear. If somebody wanted to put a screen porch, or they wanted to put a new back door on their building, this is not going to prevent that from happening. It's just to put multiple type entrances to make it look like it's a multiple dwelling unit building that this regulation would be limited.
Alder Rummel, did you have any follow-up?
Yeah, I just think there's a lot of times when people make additions to their buildings, they maybe take a window out and put in a door in a new place. But you're saying, Mr. Tucker, that the point is that the general appearance of the houseness should not really be altered to have a lot of doors. So a reasonable alteration is probably okay.
I would agree with that. Yes, we aren't going to let people put doors in so they can exit a building. It would be fine. It's just the multiple entrances question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alder. Commissioner Cantrell.
I would just like to ask staff what they think about the proposed amendment. Mr. Tucker?
Yeah. Well, this is fine. In fact, this is like when we were working a lot of this up. This is one of the things we kind of didn't touch. So it was pointed out to me by someone else earlier today that we need to think about how the kitchens piece fits in. And I realized, that's going to be a problem because we prohibit multiple kitchens except for owner-occupied dwellings without roomers. And absolutely the idea was to allow this to occur. It would have been sort of something for us to skip. That's why I actually contacted Alder Heck and said, hey, could you bring this up tonight at the Planning Commission and we can take care of it in this form.
Should we limit the number of kitchens? I mean, I don't know. I can't imagine that we'd have more than two in a single family house, or one in the basement and one upstairs or something like that, but I don't know.
The thing about multiple kitchens and the way they're regulated in single family homes is not by the number, because there are minor things that could trigger that, like a kitchen sink, cabinets, a refrigerator, and that kind of stuff. And I wouldn't want to end up in a situation where we inadvertently prohibited something because it had three things that qualified as a kitchen, but it was just fine for a 10-person co-op or 12-person co-op.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other discussion or questions related to this amendment? Seeing no raised hands, we'll come to a vote, and I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands to object, we're back to the main motion as amended. Are there any questions or discussions about that? I see no raised hands, so we'll come to a vote. And I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, the motion passes unanimously. The next item on the agenda is agenda item 6, Legistar 63441, creating section 28.022 through 00486 of the Madison General Ordinances to change the zoning of properties located at 5501 Mineral Point Road and 425 through 441 Charmony Drive, 19th Alder District, from suburban employment to traditional employment, and creating section 28.002 through 00487 of the Madison General Ordinances to change the zoning of properties from suburban employment district to traditional shopping street district, and also to be considered along with agenda item 6, agenda item 7, Legistar 63210, approving the preliminary plat and final plat of the Element District subdivision of land generally addressed as 5501 Mineral Point Road and 425 through 441 Charmony Drive, 19th Alder District. And I believe we have a presentation from Colin Punt. Mr. Punt.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. The Commission is now considering the request to rezone the northeast corner of University Research Park, again, 5501 Mineral Point Road and 425 to 441 Charmony Drive, from SE to TSS and TE, and the accompanying approval of the preliminary plat and final plat, which will create 6 lots. The proposal for the Element District development calls for this 18-acre subject site to be platted and zoned with the intent for future development of a mixed-use apartment building, a food hall, fitness center, lab and office, and hotel with related retail and food and beverage uses. The southern portion of the lot is proposed to remain SE and continue with the lab and office uses that are already positioned there. The applicant intends to begin earthwork and public infrastructure construction this coming summer. According to the letter of intent, the first phase of development is intended to occur in late 2021, a second phase beginning in 2023 with build out by fall of 2024. I do want to note that this is just the rezoning and the plat. Many, if not all, of the future developments would require conditional use approval. Planning Division does believe that the applicable standards can be found met and recommends that the Commission forward the zoning map amendments and the plat to the Council with a recommendation of approval. I will be available to answer any questions after the applicant makes their presentation.
Okay, I will open the public hearing. The first registrant is Aaron Olver, 510 Charmony Drive, Madison, in support, wishing to speak, representing University Research Park. Mr. Olver.
It doesn't appear that you have a microphone attached. There might be a prompt. asking you to connect that.
Mr. Olver, are you seeing a prompt to unmute or to connect your mic?
If you don't have a prompt for you to connect your mic, the best thing to do is probably be to exit and then return the meeting.
Okay, it's looking
looks like we've got him.
We've got him now. Mr. Olver, are you there?
Hi, Liddell. How are you?
I'm okay. How about you?
Good. Sorry about that. I'm having some issues with Zoom on my laptop, so I switched over to my phone, which seems like it's working.
Okay, very good.
Well, thank you for having us tonight and for considering this. I'm Aaron Olver, the Managing Director of University Research Park. And if we could go to the next slide. I am joined tonight by a couple of my colleagues, Paul Minch and Quinn Perky, who are also here and available to answer questions. And through a competitive process, we selected the Mandel Group to partner with us on the parts of this project that are outside of our tax-exempt purpose. So Elizabeth Adler from the Mandel Group is here and will also be presenting shortly. University Research Park is a nonprofit that is affiliated with the University of Wisconsin-Madison, for those of you who don't know. We were started in 1984 to develop what used to be a research farm, and today has become home to about 125 companies on 250 acres of land. And it's been very successful. It works well both for incubating companies on behalf of the University of Wisconsin and the broader community. But also it's become a profit center for the university, which is really important at a time when the state funding's been flat, federal funding's been flat, state funding's been declining, and tuition's been frozen. And you can see that it was really developed as a very bucolic, park-like, and suburban campus. And although it's worked well, a few years ago, we set out to start to transform it. Next slide, please. We did this with several goals in mind. Although the park is very strong right now, we wanted to make sure that we were providing the kind of vibrant and dynamic environment that our tenants wanted, so that we could make sure that the research park remains an asset for decades into the future, not only to the University of Wisconsin, but also to the economy of Madison and to the city in terms of generating jobs and tax base. We wanted to help companies that are increasingly working hard to attract and recruit talent. And we wanted to really be good stewards of the land, making sure that we address stormwater and sustainability, that we're not only taking advantage of the city's investments in bus rapid transit, but that we're developing around that strategy. And we finally wanted to open the park up to the neighborhood. We want to be an inclusive place that's welcoming. And we want to really be an asset to the neighbors that surround the park. We picked this corner here on the corner of Whitney Way and Mineral Point Road for this development for a couple of different reasons. One, it's centrally located between the two halves of the research park. Secondly, it's near Exact Science, who's helped us anchor this with a first transformative project that was recently completed, their headquarters, which you'll see in a minute. And third, by pushing the development up to the corner of Mineral Point Road, where we have one vacant site left in the park that hasn't been developed yet, we can really make it suitable for retail amenities like food and beverage and fitness, and do it in a way that sort of presents that to the community right there on that transit-oriented and busy intersection that'll be part of the BRT line in the future, we hope.
Mr. Olver, that concludes your available time. Thank you. We will move now to Elizabeth Adler, 330 East Kilburn Avenue, Milwaukee, in support and wishing to speak. And she is saying that she's not representing any organization, but I think maybe she is representing an organization, so perhaps she could clarify that. Ms. Adler?
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yes, and reminder, 3 minutes.
Understood. I apologize. I am here representing the Mandel Group. And I'm the partner with the University Research Park. Colin, if you could please go to the one more slide. Thank you. Okay, so I will briefly run through and provide you all with a little bit more color as to how we arrived to the land use plan we are at today. So first things first, we engaged with a consultant to distribute a opinion survey throughout the research park to get an idea of what the employees and the tenants really want and what they really need. So from that, we learned that this pocket of Madison really is a desirable place to live. Walking to work is extremely attractive, and that of the respondents, almost 30% of them are currently apartment dwellers. So we have a good idea of the demographic that live and work within the research park area. Next slide. We understand that by providing some sort of state-of-the-art fitness facility, we think that it would be highly used by those within the park as well as those surrounding the park. Next slide. And we also found out a resounding positive feedback when it relates to creative ideas for food hall and beverage, and as well as offering different opportunities for coffee and another place for tenants to go during the day or before or after their workday. Next slide. So from that, we begin our physical framework and work with the research park to establish what we're now calling the element district. So this image is to give you perspective of how much undeveloped land there is that we hope to catalyze. Next slide. So as Colin articulated, the element district is a combination of a lab office building, multifamily apartments, alongside a food hall and climbing gym, and across the street from a hotel. We are also proposing, on this image, you can see 2 public roadways. North-south is Element Way, and running east-west is Catalyst Way. Next slide. We've begun to do a lot of thinking about architecture. This is a preliminary sketch that our architects put together to start to get an idea of the feel for the pedestrian scale that we're looking to achieve in the research park as we begin to urbanize it with the street grid. We would like to reflect architectural influences that already exist in the park while respecting the future development. Next slide. We have been focusing a lot on traffic and the generation that this project will create. We're also extremely focused on transit-oriented development. As is stressed in the Southwest Neighborhood Plan, we think that multimodal transportation, not only with arrival, but also within the element district, is extremely important for a successful new development. Next slide. We've also been doing our homework as it relates to stormwater management. We are extremely sensitive to the future development and what that may imply with stormwater management as a whole. And we have done quite a bit of studying with our engineer to ensure all of the management remains on site, and as well as working closely with the city engineer to understand the implications. Next slide. And ultimately, this brings us together. We get to work directly with the research park to help them bring their dreams of this mixed use area to life. And so I just wanted to reiterate exactly what we are in front of you for tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Adler. That does conclude your available time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. The next registrant is Ronald Kloss, Westward Way, Madison, in support, not wishing to speak, but available to answer questions. Paul Minch, 601 Pickford Street, Madison, in support, not wishing to speak, but available to answer questions. Representing University Research Park, Mr. Kloss is representing Elizabeth Adler at the Mandel Group. Are there questions of any of our registrants? Alder Rummel.
I just question whether there's a little bit more information that they were going to share that didn't get finished timely. Erin or Elizabeth.
Ms. Adler, did you want to add anything? Could you unmute Ms. Adler, please? Ms. Adler, did you have any more that you wish to add?
No, thank you. I was just going to reiterate our request that is in front of you this evening, and I believe the commissioners understand what we are asking.
Thank you very much. Mr. Olver, did you have anything that you wish to add?
I really appreciate the opportunity. I was going to show you a picture of the new Exact Science headquarters, which is the first picture where we've pulled a building up to the street, where we're starting to set this new urban pattern, and just point out that we're really working to engage in placemaking. If you look at the building, you'll see it's pulled up to the street. There's a lot of planters, lights, a very streetscape oriented design that's really emblematic of what we're trying to do here with the Catalyst District. We hope this will just create a very dynamic environment that will help us incubate and grow more companies like Exact. And that was all I was going to add.
Thank you, Mr. Olver. Did you have any further questions, Alder Rummel?
I've heard this conversation for a number of years, Aaron Olver, and so nice to see you. Is there any other future plans besides what's before us to do infill with more of this kind of amenities like coffee shops and restaurants? I'm just curious, as more than anything else.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this first project, we hope that the Exact Science project was important to update our covenants. We updated them to allow greater density, to allow buildings to come up and create more of a street edge. This project is sort of designed to bring some of those mixed use amenities into the site. So we didn't get a chance to go into the details, and I'm sure we'll be back before you as those evolve with some of the details we'll be asking for conditional use permissions on. But we're hoping to have some multiple food and beverage offerings, the fitness offering that Elizabeth talked about. We're hoping to include a restaurant or coffee shop in the ground floor of the lab building that will anchor the project on the corner. The hotel we're hoping to develop, possibly with a restaurant in a future phase that Elizabeth mentioned. We're really trying to drive the parking underground. There will be parking under the lab building, as well as structured parking underneath the apartment buildings. And that'll allow us to really not only create that street edge, but also to preserve land that we think could be a development for additional infill in the future. So there's a couple buildings near here that are controlled by other parties. Slipstream is a energy-focused company, nonprofit company that's in the park, and then Exact Science has a building. But those two could support additional density. And then we've also studied the possibility of using our surface parking lot at the MG&E Innovation Center, which is just across Charmony Drive from these sites, as another future infill site. So we think if we can, although the economics are challenging because of the structured parking, if we can succeed in this second project, we hope that it'll catalyze opportunities to do additional infill.
Thank you.
Any further questions, Alder Rummel?
Yep.
Commissioner Sundquist.
Yes, thank you. We just had a project down the street at Oakwood, and one of the issues with that was how it addressed Mineral Point. And you guys have a pretty major intersection at Mineral Point and Whitney, which I believe is where the BRT is going to be. I think it's shifted around out there. And I can't remember if it's now supposed to go through the transfer point or exactly what route it's taking. At any rate, so it's you guys may know, or you may have been more up to date in the latest iteration than I am, but you talked about taking advantage of the BRT. Maybe you could speak to specifically how it'll do that. But my concern is regardless of that, is the orientation to the major streets there. And you have like a detention pond in the big corner, it looks like. So it's going to be hard to hold the corner at the Whitney Way and Mineral Point intersection. So what are people who walk or get off the bus or even drive along Whitney Way or Mineral Point going to experience from this?
Yeah, thank you for that question. That's really exciting. a couple of things. So our understanding of the current plans for the BRT is that it'll run down Mineral Point Road. It'll turn south on Whitney Way to hit the transfer point, and then it'll come north again and stop, I think, north of the intersection of Whitney Way and Mineral Point Road. So I think we have a bunch of opportunities there. One is to have really convenient access for people who want to live elsewhere and work in the park. The other opportunity is for people who live in the park to get to other parts of Madison. And then I think the third thing that's important about that, we do obviously a lot of work with the University of Wisconsin, either because there's faculty and students going back and forth, or there's other research relationships. And so having a BRT stop right there will improve our connectivity to the university, which I think will be not only of great utility to the people that work there, but it'll foster that connectivity and hopefully result in more good things. We are very aware that this development has to be four-sided, and we are right now. When you look at that intersection, there's a very lovely stormwater detention pond. Some people call it the amphitheater. Some people call it Stonehenge, and it's very attractive. But it does create kind of a barrier between the park. And so part of what our plan does is it re-engineers that and integrates it with landscaping, both plantings, and tree canopy, but also with built environment to provide stormwater detention on that corner, but also to really integrate it into what will be a significant lab building on that corner. And we're studying right now ways to bring that building down to the street. So although it'll be slightly held back from the corner of Mineral Point Road and Whitney Way by some stormwater, it'll be pulled a lot closer to the street than the buildings in the park currently are. And then on Element and Catalyst, those corners will really be held on hopefully, three sides once the hotel gets built, and hopefully a fourth in the future, by buildings that come right up to that corner. So the strategy, I guess, is a little bit to have some of the placemaking take place internally, as well as trying to transition to the more bucolic parts of the park that are across the street or in the neighborhood or at Garner Park across the street.
Okay, thanks. No, I took it that the elevations and renderings that you showed were at that corner or the interior part that you just described, but do you have any renderings of what we might see on Mineral Point or Whitney Way that would help us?
We do have early renderings. I don't know if there's a good way to share them in this setting.
We could certainly follow up with a collection of early sketches, as Aaron mentioned, as we've been studying the viewpoints from the intersection after this meeting.
Well, we got to vote on it today. It would.
Well, we're voting.
I think if you have something available, you could. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say we're voting on the zoning.
Yeah.
We would see this back again for the specific, so we get another crack at it.
Sure.
I will tell you that the lab building is, it's planned to be a 4 to 5 story building with about 100,000 square feet. So it's going to be, and we're working very hard on that. We hired Perkins and Will from Chicago to design that building. And we hired them not only because they have a great lab portfolio, but also because they have some incredible design chops. And so we're planning to create a building on that corner that really does not only put the science that happens at Research Park on display with a transparent lab-oriented building, but also that really holds that corner in a majestic way.
Okay. Well, to Chair Zeller's point, I know we're just voting on the zoning, but you can build some things by right under zoning. Not that would necessarily happen here, but I'd feel better kind of knowing what the plan was on those major streets before we did go ahead. But, and I mean, if it doesn't hold us up too much, an email to staff and staff could throw it up on the screen while other people are asking their questions. That would help me, but we'll see what other people say. And I may have questions for staff about what the process will be and afterwards, but that's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sundquist. Commissioner Solheim.
Thanks. I just had a quick timing question for the development team. Since this is just seeking approval of the zoning and plat, and we were just talking about various conditional uses, it seems like you expect to start some work this summer and fall. So I would anticipate you would be submitting some of those land use packages, and we should see them in the next few months. I just wanted to get an idea of timing if you have any sense of that.
Mr. Olver?
Yeah, I might ask Elizabeth to comment on that while I am trying to pull up an image that we can email to Colin.
Right. Sure. Definitely. Yeah. So pending approvals from Plan Commission and Council, we will begin engaging with our design development and start refining the drawings. And so our intent is to go back to the University Research Park's Design Review Board first, as I believe would be typical in March, and obtain feedback from them, refine the proposal, go back to the review board in April for a final approval of the designs, and which at that point we will have much more detail set in place for approvals as far as material applications and height and all of the regulations that would go along with that. And then we would submit for conditional uses in May and come back this summer, ideally.
And that would include the housing and food hall and lab with the hotel to follow at a future date. Is that correct?
Our intent is to submit the multifamily effectively. If you can picture the schematic graphic, we had everything north of Catalyst Drive. So there's the multifamily housing, the food hall, climbing gym, and the lab would come first. Yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Great. That's all I have. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Commissioner Solheim. Are there further questions of our registrants? Mr. Punt, do you have the rendering from Mr. Olver that you could share?
I have not received it yet.
Mr. Olver, have you been able to identify a rendering?
Yes, I have two pictures. I just need to drop into an email to Colin as soon as I find his email here.
Okay. I am going to leave the public hearing open, but while we're waiting for that, let's move on to questions of staff. Are there questions of staff? Commissioner Sundquist.
Yes, maybe staff could speak to the process going forward and future reviews. Obviously, if you need conditional CUPs, we would have to see that, conditional use permits. But what about build by right, and is there going to be design review by the Urban Design Commission? I just really think this intersection is, what we saw looked really nice, but it was the internal part of it. And getting the outer part of it right, like we did in Oakwood, I think that process was, a little bit drawn out and took an extra step for the applicant, but the building was much better for it. So will we be, what can we expect coming forward if we go forward this time with the zoning?
Yeah, Ms. Stouter can jump in if she has something additional, but kind of based on my reading of what has already been presented. The multifamily building in the TSS zone and the kind of lab and food hall in the TE zoning district probably will both trigger conditional use review. So those will almost assuredly come back. The hotel probably will as well, but that's internal to the site. That's not something that's along Whitney Way or Mineral Point Road. The only one that I could conceivably see going through as a permitted use would be the lab and office building. That really depends on how large it is and what the exact uses are. But I would think that for something of the scale that is being proposed here, it would likely trigger conditional use review, but I can't say for sure.
And is there any automatic UDC review of any of this? And if not, could we attach something like that in case there is something that comes through just by right?
As proposed, there wouldn't be urban design review. All of the development would still go through the Research Parks Design Review Board. Heather may have additional information on that.
No, Colin's right. I mean, there's not a mechanism in the zoning code to require Urban Design Commission review of permitted uses. I mean, and as we move toward more proactive rezonings after adopted plans, we will see more of this. The Plan Commission can send conditional uses to the Urban Design Commission for an advisory recommendation, but this isn't in a district or an urban design district, and they're not doing a plan development. So this would be by right, and it's consistent with our plans. And so there's no way to just add a mechanism for UDC review.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sundquist. Mr. Punt, do you?
Yes, I can open something right now. It is opening on my computer right now, slowly.
Well, as that happens, I'm going to go to Alder Rummel and see what questions you have of staff. Alder Rummel.
Thank you, Chair Zellers. The question, I saw a brief pop-up that showed the rear yard and side yard setbacks at the corner in question, and that, of course, made me think that Mr. Sundquist is onto something here. So I would definitely want us to take a look at that corner and how that whole street is treated. And so I'm looking forward to seeing whatever you come up with. And I think we want the front yard to be, at least some of it, to be on Mineral Point. And maybe there's things you could do differently, but it just seems to me that we don't want that to be like the back of the house kind of stuff and all internally facing. And maybe that's not what you're proposing, but that's what that brief thing suggested to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder.
So I do have the materials ready. If you would like, I can. Would you like me to bring up that diagram that Alder Rummel was just referring to first, and then?
Yeah. Why don't you do that?
Okay. So this is what she was referring to. As you can see, the front yards for the three northern lots are all along the new proposed street, the east-west street Catalyst Way. Rear yards would then be to Mineral Point Road, and then I believe this is the lot and the that Commissioner Sundquist has brought up, and I do have images from Aaron for that. Give me 1 second. So this is, I don't know if Chair Zellers, you would like Aaron to speak about
yes,
these?
I would, please. So if we could unmute Mr. Olver to address the question and the illustration here.
Yeah, so what you're looking at here are two different massing diagrams that represent sort of the range of scale that we're looking at. This is not yet architecture, so I want to caution you. This is just literally a box on the site. But you're standing at the intersection of Whitney Way and Mineral Point Road here, kind of looking up at this building. So you can kind of imagine, you're in either a neighborhood or you're in Garner Park or you're across the street in the more suburban part of the park. And what is happening here is you're sort of transitioning across the street through this sort of landscaped area and up to this building that will hold this corner. And one of the things I want to point out is that we are placing the parking entry and the loading on the internal street. So that is not, we're not in any way trying to turn our back on the street. In fact, right now, Research Park, most of the buildings are sort of oriented towards the internal streets, and they do kind of turn their back on the neighborhood. And here we're trying to do exactly the opposite. By bringing these new streets in, Catalyst and Element, we're actually trying to open the park back up to the neighborhood. And we recognize one of the things that's going to impose on us is we have to create four-sided buildings. So we're very aware that this will instantly become the most visible lab building in the city of Madison, and that the two facades you're looking at have to be terrific. And the thing that I'll just give you a little detail, the thing that we're working on right now is whether or not we can get the parking to dive underground fast enough so that it clears this corner where that corner comes down to kind of integrate with the landscaping. So what we'd like to be able to do is make sure that this corner at all levels is sort of an active and transparent corner where you can look in and see, either the restaurant or, meetings or, an auditorium. We're not sure what the use is. Maybe it's lab space, but that this whole facade is activated and in a way that is transitioning to the rest of the area, but also is integrated with the landscaping and the stormwater that we're going to do around the building. And then there will also be an opportunity to walk out of this building on sort of the opposite corner to go access the climbing gym or the food hall or the hotel or the apartments that are kind of up the street. And there will be sort of, I guess, two opportunities for this building. If you're driving by on Mineral Point Road at 40 miles an hour, you'll hopefully get an iconic, exciting lab building. But if you are invited in by these new streets and you turn in, you'll be able to park on the street, and you'll enter a more pedestrian-friendly, bike-friendly area where the streets are slower and they're more geared towards pedestrians and bicycles. There will be wide multi-use paths and so on, so that you can kind of be in a little quieter environment internal to the park.
And Aaron, if I could also echo some of your comments, just as it relates to from the early planning phases of, how we established the lab building on this corner parcel and how important we all feel that the corner is held by a lab that represents the research park very well. We spent a lot of time exploring the stormwater management, and this corner is the lowest point in this region of the research park. So we worked closely, our stormwater engineer worked with Greg Fries to preliminarily come up with some areas to reserve to meet the new city ordinances of the 200-year storm event. So rather than looking at the building as it's being too far set back, we're trying to react to and incorporate some creative stormwater solutions that naturally just make sense at this corner. due to the natural topography of the site.
Commissioner Sundquist, did you have any follow-up questions? Oh, yes, here. Commissioner Sundquist.
Yeah, thank you. This is helpful, and I appreciate your digging this out and sending it to us, and you understand that it's a massing study and not the design. And the four-sided building is going to be important. I guess crucially, one thing you didn't mention, or if you did, I missed it. What about pedestrians coming off of the BRT or just walking down Mineral Point? Will they be able to get into this building without going all the way around to the new streets? And the same with the other buildings proposed along Mineral Point, not just this one on the corner. You have like real usable entrances on the buildings on the Mineral Point side?
We're hoping that there will be a restaurant or a cafe of some kind on the northwest corner. So that'll be kind of visible from Mineral Point Road, hopefully outdoor seating and something that'll have kind of its own identity on that corner. So that'll be sort of at the intersection of Mineral Point Road and one of the new streets. Whether or not you'll be able to walk like through or across the stormwater and enter at this corner is something we're still studying. It might be that there's an entrance that the public can access there, or it might be that there's an entrance that people who, are tenants of the building can access. There might be, if we can succeed in this parking ramp configuration and we can pull that corner right down and integrate it in the landscaping, there'll be opportunities, I think, to walk out of that corner directly through the landscaping on that corner. But we're really thinking about this as sort of an integrated network. So we're planning a series of wide multi-use paths for pedestrians and bikes that'll provide connections not only internal to the park, but to get them out to the corners so that they can either get to the west transfer point or to the locations nearby where the BRT stops are. And then importantly, we're trying to design this so that there's something that's worth walking to. So if you get off the BRT, we want to have, a coffee shop or a restaurant or a collection of restaurants or a gym that are inviting and attractive to people, not only coming off the BRT, but people who live in the neighborhood or work in the neighborhood.
Okay. Well, I don't know. I didn't hear a firm yes there. I think it's going to be important that people be able to access the buildings from Mineral Point directly without walking around the building. So it sounds like we'll be looking at them again and we'll be able to assess that. But so I realize that if there's a stormwater area, you might not be able to walk directly from the corner. Although maybe you can work that out. But the building shouldn't just look inviting from Mineral Point for people driving by. It should be directly accessible for people walking on the point. So that's going to be a big concern. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Sundquist. Good points. Are there other questions, excuse me, of the applicant? Any questions of any of the registrants, either of the registrants? Seeing no raised hands, I will close the public hearing. Are there further questions of staff? Seeing no raised hands, I would be looking for a motion, please. Commissioner Cantrell.
Yes, thank you. I will recommend that the Plan Commission forward the rezoning of the parcels along Mineral Point and Charmony Drive to the City Council, along with the preliminary and final plats of the Element District subdivision, with the recommendation of approval.
Seconded by Alder Lemmer.
And that's also that's including the addendum recommendations that we also received on this item.
Right. Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. Commissioner Cantrell, did you wish to speak to your motion?
Yes, I think this is an exciting infill development. I'm glad that the University Research Park is bringing it forward in addition to the development team. I think that the details of the buildings and the location of the entry points and setbacks from Mineral Point, that will be reviewed in future conditional use permits that we will definitely likely to see on the lots. I think that the location of the building towards Mineral Point and Whitney Way will be somewhat dependent on the stormwater installations at that intersection, because that's the low point of this site. And I think that that item will really dictate a lot of that location of the at least how close the building can get to the street. But I think this is the density and the is exactly where we want it. It's on the BRT lines, and I'm hopefully the University Research Park will be bringing forward other infill developments. It looks like they have some major parking lots within that area that could be redeveloped, and I think that would be a good thing that they could do. So I'm excited about the development, and that's why I'm recommending it be approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Are there any other comments, discussion? Seeing no raised hands, we'll come to a vote, and I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, the motion passes unanimously. The next item is agenda item 8, Legistar 63443, creating section 28.022 through 00484 of the Madison General Ordinances to amend a planned development district to approve an amended general development plan on property located at 701 Gardner Road and 4716 Sheboygan Avenue, 11th Alder District, and creating section 28.022 through 00484-5 of the Madison General Ordinances to approve a specific implementation plan for 701 Gardner Road. And I believe Mr. Punt will be giving us a overview.
Yes, thank you again. Excuse me. The applicant here is requesting approval to amend the general development plan for blocks 2 and 4 of the Madison Yards at Hill Farms Plan Development. On block 2, which is 701 Gardner Road, the applicant is proposing to construct a 54,000 square foot grocery store and a 273 unit, 15-story apartment building with a shared 552 stall parking facility. On lot 4 at 4716 Sheboygan Avenue, the applicant is requesting to add up to 200 hotel rooms to the unit mix on that parcel. The block is currently approved in the GDP for up to 150 dwelling units and 15,000 square feet of commercial or retail space. This site is recommended for RMU in the comprehensive plan and located along a regional corridor and part of an established regional activity center on the growth priority areas map. It's not located within the boundaries of any sub-area plans. Although the RMU recommendation generally contemplates a maximum building height of 12 stories, staff doesn't feel that the recommendation precludes a taller building at a location that is appropriate to support it. In this particular case, staff feels that the University Seago intersection is a well-suited location in the city for a building of this scale, and that the proposed building will be complementary to the other tall buildings in the immediate area. Staff also does not object to the introduction of 200 hotel rooms on Block 4. An approval of the SIP of an SIP for that block would be required before any construction could begin. The original approval of Madison Yards was conditioned on a robust TDMP for the development. The applicant has submitted a TDMP, which has been reviewed by traffic engineering. Traffic engineering staff does believe that it can meet the standards for approval. Lastly, UDC did grant final approval to this proposal on January 13, and that included recommending approval of the 15-story height for that building. So in summary, the Planning Division does believe that the proposed development is consistent with the recommendations for the site in the comprehensive plan, and that the request can meet the standards for planned developments.
Thank you, Mr. Punt. Alder Martin, did you wish to speak now or after the public hearing?
I have to jump for like a half an hour at 7 to another meeting. So if it's possible for me to make comments now, and then if you guys are still talking about it, I can come back and be available for questions, if that's okay.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, thank you guys. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Madam Chair. So I am very much in support of this this project. It remains consistent with their the comprehensive plan, and has been supported, as we heard, by city staff as well as neighbors and people living in the area. This project has been in the works actually since before I came into office, so it's been a while. And they would like to move forward. We would like to see this to start to happen. This is a place that is currently a big blacktop former parking lot. If we are talking about urban infill, this is the best place for that. We're going to be replacing like I said, a blacktop surface, so it's not taking any green space or land for farming or anything like that away. And as mentioned before, this project is also along several bus lines that currently kind of serve as a de facto transfer point on Sheboygan Avenue. And this is going to be along the route for the bus rapid transit east-west route. So I am very supportive of having density in terms of apartments so that we can put more people in this spot that is going to be a great infill place, as well as encouraging for the folks that live there to use either BRT or the bus system before that starts. So I think that it's the sustainability that they've worked on as well also makes this a more sustainable project than others that have come before it. And the public has been really excited for the Whole Foods that will be moving there from further down University Avenue. They're going to be putting solar on the roofs of the building or access, so it will be solar ready, and as well as the HVAC and electrical systems that have the smart controls. And the TDM plan, which hasn't yet been approved, this project actually has not only passed what the proposed criteria would be, but it is also actually it also exceeds that point by a substantial amount. I believe, yeah, it's a lot. They've gone above and beyond what is in and requested in the TDM plan. I am very supportive of this project, and we would like to see it go further and actually start construction. I also want to add that the stormwater holding tank that will be built as part of this project is really good news. During the August 2017 floods, areas nearby did suffer a lot of catastrophic flooding. So having a place for stormwater to go is going to be really helpful should we ever encounter storms like we did that particular day. So I am, like I said, very supportive of this. And I also very much appreciate the commission taking my testimony a little bit earlier and out of order. And as I said, I can come back at 7:30 and I'll be available for questions if anybody has any of me. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Alder Martin. And I will open the public hearing. The first registrant is Sean Roberts, 241 North Broadway, Milwaukee, in support, wishing to speak, representing Summit Smith Development out of Milwaukee. Mr. Roberts, you have 3 minutes.
Great. Thank you, Commission, and thank you, Alder Martin. I will be brief. I know we are limited in time. We are excited to be back in front of you for Block 2 of the Madison Yards project. You can advance the slide. I'm sure, as you know, the Madison Yards project is the 14-acre piece of the former 21-acre DOT site that we completed the state office building and parking structure on several years ago. We did go through the rezoning for the GDP, and we've begun to come back for our first phase of SIPs, and are really excited to finally be able to move forward after several years in the pipeline. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, we were here last summer for Block 6 and 3. We had simultaneously submitted Block 2 at that time with a hotel use instead of the residential. That submission was made in the beginning of March of last year, right when COVID hit. As a result, we've had to pivot, and we worked with Whole Foods and rerun our models and really pivoted quickly on the design and replaced what was the hotel on the corner of Seago and University with a residential tower. And we are now back to get Block 2, which is truly the catalytic block that lets the rest of it happen, approved and under construction. Next slide, please. Just to highlight the scope, we are including about 54,000 square foot Whole Foods, a very small storage management office on the lower level for Madison Yards that's on the corner of University and Gardner Road. The large residential project now has 273 residential units with a mix of efficiencies, 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom units. It is market rate, and we'll have modern amenities, including a rooftop patio area on the north overlooking University Avenue and north towards the lake. As Colin mentioned, we have 552 total parking spaces in between the Whole Foods and the residential area and on the lower level. Next slide, please. As stated with our other projects, we have reviewed the code and worked closely with city staff from engineering to traffic to planning. And we do believe our proposal meets the intent of the comprehensive plan, our original GDP, and the requirements of a planned development district. The items in red we believe we meet, and we've worked closely with planning as reflected in their staff report, which is supportive of the project. Also, as was mentioned, we were before UDC last week and got our final approval from them. And we are hopeful to get approval tonight so we can move to common council and really plan for construction to begin as soon as possible. And with that, we have some other team members here tonight that will address their signed up separately. So that's it for me.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Robert. The next registrant is Tracy Lehman, West Peachtree Street, Atlanta, Georgia, in support, wishing to speak, representing Kimley Horn out of Atlanta. Tracy Lehman.
Tracy, you are muted on our side. You may have a prompt. Mm-hmm.
Tracy, look for a prompt to unmute so that we can hear you. We show you as unmuted here. So you will have to unmute on your end.
You may have a mute button on your microphone or headset if you want to check that.
Are you able to hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, it's not working with my computer audio, but I was able to transfer it to my cell phone, so I apologize for that.
Okay, great. 3 minutes.
Yeah, great. So as Sean had pointed out, we've updated the transportation demand management plan that was developed for the Madison Yards overall plan development, and that was done in coordination with the city and MPO staff, so that it includes, additional strategies and those that are specific to Block 2. So based on the most recent version of the TDMP scorecard that the city is developing, 28 mitigation points for TDM would be desired for Block 2. And as Alder Martin just pointed out, the site as it is now with the TDM strategies as well as the design, Block 2 would achieve 40 mitigation points. So that's about 45% more than what would be desired based upon that scoring criteria. So obviously the city's still working through and developing that, but we think that speaks pretty well to the strategies and the measures that this group has done with the development team to make a robust TDM plan for the overall development. And then that coming in when we look at the block specifically, it scores really well, meaning that measures are being taken to reduce and to help achieve the goal of a 30% reduction of single occupant vehicles coming to the development that was set as part of the TDMP. So one thing that is included that's new in this version of the TDMP is that the developer has agreed and feels it is beneficial for the residents to have real-time transit information screens. So those will be provided in the residential lobbies, and that's new to the plan that's been added in there. And then just as a reminder, the developer, we have made commitments to provide a e-cycle station on Block 6. So that will have 5 docks and 3 e-cycles. So that can be expanded in the future as well. And then we will have a TDM coordinator for the Block 2 specifically, and then one for the someone coordinating with the whole site that will coordinate with the city as well as the MPO. We have separated out residential unit parking from the residential leases. So those will be separated. You'd purchase parking separately. And then TDM welcome packets will be provided to new residents at move-in, and that will include a 10-ride transit card. So lastly, the TDMP, as it stood before, outlined metrics that will be provided on an annual basis to the MPO coordinator as well as the city MPO TDM coordinator, as well as city staff, so that they can meet and understand the effectiveness of the different strategies that are being implemented and then adjust those as they're needed within the block. So that's all I have for y'all, and I'm happy to take any questions about those measures and the TDM plan later on.
Thank you, Ms. Lehman. And we will come back to questions after we hear from all of our registrants. The next registrant is Craig Pride, 217 North Jefferson Street, Chicago, in support, wishing to speak, representing KTGY Group Architects out of Chicago. Mr. Pride.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Very good. So I wanted to speak to the item of sustainability on Block 2, very similar to the items that we presented on Block 3 last year. 3 items we wanted to highlight. First of all, for the Block 2 residential tower, the development is committing to be solar ready on the rooftop for the residential building. We are also providing 24 skylights in the rooftop of the Whole Foods to provide natural daylight into the grocer area. And we are providing electric car charging stations for both the grocery users and the residential tenants in the parking garage. The Whole Foods is going to be utilizing a energy management system to automatically control lighting and program the HVAC to reduce overall energy use. With regards to open space and amenities, the Block 2 residential tower provides a total amount of 15,000 square feet of open space, which represents about a 9% improvement on the code requirements for residential open space under the code. It's also adjacent to the Block 6 Central Green amenity space as well. And the project has been designed and submitted to be compliant with the 2020 Stormwater Ordinance, as well as the 2020 bird glass ordinance that was enacted, I believe, back in October. Next slide. This is the view of the project from the northeast corner of University and Seago. A couple of things architecturally. The base of the residential building has been designed to provide that urban edge along University, and we have extended the residential use all the way down to the street level, again, to further activate the corner of University and Seago. The base of the residential building also has been designed to be kind of compatible and consistent to provide that 3-story appearance along University, matching up or aligning with both the parking garage and the volume of the Whole Foods building further to the west. Next slide. This is the view of Block 2 from the center green, the open space area, showing the Whole Foods in the front. The entrance for the Whole Foods is right adjacent to the parking garage entrance in the center. There are also activated street frontages there for outdoor dining and terrace landscaping down Gardner Road. And then in the background, you have the Block 2 residential tower. The entrance for the residential tower has been located on Madison Yards Way, and it also has outdoor areas on the east side of the building to further activate that street frontage. So with that, that explains the architecture, and be happy to answer any questions. We did receive unanimous approval from UDC.
Thank you, Mr. Pride. Right on time here. The next registrant is James Joseph Nelson, State Road, Mazomanie, Wisconsin, in support and wishing to speak, not representing anyone. Mr. Nelson.
Hello. I am actually a store manager at the current Whole Foods market.
So you're representing that. Okay.
Yeah, speaking on my own volition, but certainly in support of the project. I've been working at the store for 6 years. Whole Foods has been fortunate enough to be in the Madison community for 25 years now. We're very proud of the relationships that we've built with our customers, local nonprofits, farmers, and local business owners. And we just really looking forward to being part of the community for a very long time to come. Over the past years, it's become very apparent that to our team members and our customers that we just have outgrown our space. We're very excited about moving down the road to a much larger space. It'll triple our floor space in our store, likely. And excuse me. And, one of the most common comments that we get from our customers and our team members is, when will you be building a bigger store? And we'd love to be able to tell them a definitive date. And I know that there's a lot of people that are excited about it. A larger store is going to allow us, allow our customers more room to roam the aisles, allow us to bring in more products, including, more local products and regional products, and really help us meet our customers' needs in a better way. Parking for customers and team members is very challenging at our current location. It's a safety hazard. Most of our team members are parking on side streets with no sidewalks. And that will be a welcome addition as well to our customers also, as our lot fills up often. and most of you are aware, and as the alder spoke of earlier, the store's susceptible to flooding. In recent years, the store's flooded 3 times. It's very hard to predict when this flooding is going to happen. We've taken measures to eliminate that. But I think that, moving up the hill would definitely be a great thing for us. Madison Yards is going to be a great fit for Whole Foods Market. And, we get to remain in the community where we grew up in and just continue to provide our customers and team members with a great experience and really improve upon that experience. Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. The next registrant is Sean Zimney, 123 Wacker Drive, Chicago, in support, not wishing to speak, but available to answer questions, representing Gilbane Development Company out of Chicago. The next registrant is Ethan Skeels, 3361 North Dousman Street, Milwaukee, in support, not wishing to speak, but available to answer questions, not representing any organization. Kevin Yeska, 161 Horizon Drive, Verona, support, not wishing to speak, but available to answer questions, representing JSD Professional Services out of Verona. And that concludes the registrants who are available to answer questions. Are there any questions of any of the registrants? Commissioner Sundquist.
Yeah, I don't have a lot this time, but one for Tracy Lehman. I'm going to make some remarks when we get to the vote that are positive about what's happened in this iteration of this plan. So thanks in advance for the work the development team has done. But really in terms of the question, one thing, how will you determine how much the parking leases are vis-a-vis the residential leases for the apartment?
Ms. Lehman? Could we unmute Ms. Lehman?
Yes, we have.
Hi, sorry, this is Sean Roberts. If we're talking about rental rates, that's probably more appropriate for me.
Okay, sure, thanks.
Sure.
That's fine, go ahead.
Yeah, so what we've modeled is similar to other projects. What we obviously have a market rate project, and we will have market rate rents for the units, and then we will be charging market rate for the parking. Structured parking is obviously expensive, but we're basing it based on benchmarks for other successful projects in the market and what a project like this can generate in a market rate deal. So that's really how we'll come to terms with the lease rate for the parking.
Well, do you have any idea how much that is? Because I mean, it goes closer to downtown. I think some of the parking stalls go for like $200 a month, and then of course there's a lot of them that are bundled and are zero per se.
Yeah, I mean, I think initially we're looking in the 125 to 150, but we will push that to the extent possible. As written in our SIP letter of intent, we actually have programmed about one space per unit. So we fully expect these to be in high demand, and we do not want to overbuild the parking and want to generate as much revenue from it as possible so we can pay for the structured parking.
Okay, and if I'm a tenant there, will I just get a bill that has a line item each month for the unit and then for however many stalls, or how will that work?
You'll have to pay. I mean, when you sign your lease, you'll have to be assigned your space that you're willing to pay for or not. It'll be part of something that you can be billed separately for as an add-on.
Right. I just wonder, are you going to bill monthly for that add-on, or the reason I'm asking is it's a more effective TDM measure if people see that they're paying that over time, and it's not something you can stroke a check for and then forget about it for a year. But
yeah, I imagine it would be an ongoing payment, just like rent. It wouldn't be something you would lump sum pay at the beginning.
Okay, and it would be separated out on the bill so they'd know.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you very much.
Yep. Thank you.
Alder Heck.
Thank you. This might be for Ms. Lehman. I'm kind of concerned about both pedestrian and bicycle access from points outside of Madison Yards. So not just the other side of University Avenue, but also east and west along University Avenue. Since Whole Foods is kind of a destination, I assume there'll be people coming on bicycle, potentially foot, from other than the south, I guess. And I'd just like you to describe, maybe if I'm on a bike, what do I do and where do I park my bike if I'm going to Whole Foods? And if I'm a pedestrian, how do I get in? It looks like that corner entrance along University is not meant for access to the rest of the buildings. So I just kind of want a little description of how people get there from those points.
Ms. Lehman?
Sure. Are you all able to hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. It looked like I got something. Okay. I think Sean's probably actually the better person to answer this question as well. But it does seem like whatever we did on the technical side fixed my audio issues. So thank you for that.
Okay. Mr. Roberts.
So yeah, Colin, I don't know if it's possible to pull up the site plan. It was in an appendix. I think it's plan 12 of the PDF. If that would work. Yes, perfect. So we do have a grade change of a story between University and Madison Yards Way, but the main entrance will be for pedestrians and bikes will be along Madison Yards Way. We will have bike parking right with an entrance right below the word parking deck along Madison Yards Way, internal to the structure. And then we will have sprinkled around the corners on both the Seago, Gardner, and Madison Yards Way side. We will have some outside bike stalls. The main entrance as a pedestrian would be coming into, there's a entrance door on Madison Yards Way, and then the main entrance is just around the corner at the southeast corner of the Whole Foods box. Other side, yeah. So right by that, yeah. So that the main entrance is there, and then internal to the project, there is a escalator bank and elevator bank right in the main door that takes you to the lower level parking. But if you're coming in from a bike or pedestrian experience, you'll be entering most likely in Madison Yards Way through the main door at grade at the main sales floor level, which is desirable from Whole Foods and for us, frankly, to activate Madison Yards Way. If that answers your question.
It does. I mean, and I guess since you mentioned the grade change, that makes it sound more difficult to have more access along closer to University or on University. So if I'm a bicyclist coming from University Avenue sidewalk or crossing, I'm going to need to go to Madison Yards. And then you said there's bike parking on that first level right adjacent to the entrances to the buildings.
Yeah, if you advance to slide 13, you can see the ghosted in. One more. Yeah, so we show some to the entry drive. We have some parking, bike parking area.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, up there, that's more for staff by the staff entry, but right there for the public. And then you have your main vestibule entry right across from there. On the east side of that's kind of the main double doors. And then there's a double door right onto Madison Yards Way that also takes people that could park their bikes along Madison Yards Way right there. Adjacent to that door, there's some bike corrals. And there would be also on Madison Yards Way down further east.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks. Just one more question then.
Mm-hmm.
The number of parking stalls is 500 and I can't remember how many.
52, yeah.
552, that's almost double the number of apartments, or maybe even slightly more. And so is the demand for Whole Foods parking, you're anticipating it to be as high as 270 spots? And I guess staff gets some spots.
Yes. Our lease requires that we provide those spots dedicated and segregated. So we will be allowing the staff to park in the secured area on the upper level. But they're really, the entire lower level in the main Madison Yards Way provides the lease required parking for their customers.
So how many of the spots then are for the apartment building?
One per unit. Yeah.
Oh.
So 273.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. That's all my questions.
Great.
Any other questions? Any other questions? I do have a question, seeing no raised hands. I'm delighted to see the separation of the parking for the apartments from the lease rates. Following up on that, what is the approach in terms of employees? Is there a charge for employee parking, or is that entirely up to the leaseholder?
Sure. Yes. As part of our lease with Whole Foods, we are required to provide them 25 parking stalls for staff. A facility this size, will likely have a lot more that they will encourage to come via other transit modes. But that part of wrapped in with our lease with them was to provide their customer parking and their 25 employee stalls, all wrapped in with our master lease with them.
And do you know what their approach is in terms of that? Do they provide those gratis?
I do not.
Perhaps Mr. Nelson might know.
Yeah, we currently there is no parking provided, so we don't have a policy per se. But in other stores that I've worked at, we have not charged team members for parking. There'll be some other way to determine who's eligible and some way to determine, permits and such for those spots. But it will not be charged.
I would suggest, in the interest of the whole transportation demand management, that might be something that you would want to consider charging for those. Any other questions of any of our registrants? Seeing no raised hands, I will close the public hearing. Any questions of staff? Seeing no raised hands, I would be looking for a motion. Commissioner Cantrell.
Yes, I will recommend that the Plan Commission forward the zoning map amendment approving an amended general development plan for block 2 and 4 of Madison Yards at Hill Farms plan development, and the zoning map amendment approving the plan development specific implementation plan to allow construction on lot 2, subject to approval of urban design, which I understand that they have approved the project. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Seconded by Alder Lemmer. Commissioner Cantrell, did you wish to speak to your motion?
Yes, I think this is another very exciting development of an infill, which has been planned for some time. And it's providing a density, again, with the residential development with a 15-story building that I think that it's in a spot where the transportation network can accommodate it with the BRT, with rich transit that we have in this area. And also very excited that Whole Foods is now finding a new home, which I know they've been searching for a while. And I think this would be a great spot for them. And it will be a very successful project. So I'm very pleased that it's being brought forward now.
Thank you, Commissioner Cantrell. Commissioner Sundquist.
As usual, I agree with everything that Mr. Cantrell just said, and I'll be supporting this project. I just want to make a quick couple remarks about the TDM plan, since that's been such a focus of this project in all of its iterations. I think, the last time, whenever it was a year ago, when we looked at the previous phase of this, it was a little rocky in that, the city did not really have a very firm or documented approach to the TDM, and we got, sort of what I thought was sort of vague, ideas from the developer as well as a result. And so I don't know whose fault that was exactly, but it didn't have very many specifics in it. And we can all, if you were there, you remember the discussion. So fast forward till now, I think things are much better. I think Chair Zeller's question about how to handle employees in a commercial big box store is still a live one, and in discussion with staff and how to do that. Kind of gone back and forth about how to handle brick and mortar retail in general, given how it's sort of under pressure right now. So there are unresolved issues in the program design that hopefully you will be seeing in a couple months, maybe more than several months. But by and large, staff has been really working hard and using cases like this to help develop that program. And so the development team worked through this with them, and as was said, did exceed the number of points that at least the current iteration would require from the residential side. There's still doing that really pointed up some issues. Some of these are not very common ones, but this is a project that's coming in phases. And so the question is, how do you count stuff that was done in a previous phase? Should that benefit the next phase, or are you double counting, things like that? So some really technical things that have been really helpful to work through. I think we're coming up with answers for a lot of that. But I'm glass half full plus on this DDM plan. I can be pretty enthusiastic about supporting it. It does have the paid parking, which is tremendous. I mean, we're seeing that more and more, even in greenfield developments outside of the transit served area. We're starting to see it, and that is great. That's some places have a policy around paid parking, and then that's it. We also have these other elements that will be helpful, maybe not quite as transformative, but having a welcome package with a few bus tickets in it. The research shows that actually gets some people to start riding who wouldn't have ridden before. The real-time arrival and departure stuff, all these things help. The B cycle. B cycle is pretty big, and it hasn't been really discussed very much. But this development is or has dedicated some right of way on Sheboygan Avenue for bikes there too. So that's not right on this SIP part, but if you look at the bigger thing as a whole, that's another big plus. So anyway, sorry to go on long, but thought maybe commissioners would be interested in a little, peel back of the onion on where TDM has been, and particularly with regard to this project, which has been sort of the focus of a lot of those discussions. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other comments, discussion? Seeing none, we will come to a vote. I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, the motion passes unanimously. The next item on our agenda is agenda item 10, Legistar 63212. And we will be considering that along with agenda item 11, Legistar 63213. At 522 South Gammon Road and 53 West Town Mall, 9th Alder District, consideration of the conditional use in the commercial center district for a vehicle access sales and service window, and consideration of the conditional use in the commercial center district for a major alteration to a planned multi-use site containing more than 40,000 square feet of floor area and where 25,000 square feet of floor area is designed or intended for retail use to allow construction of a one-story restaurant tavern with vehicle access sales and service window at West Town Mall, and approving a certified survey map of property owned by Seritage SRC Finance LLC located at 53 West Town Mall and 522 South Gammon Road, 9th Alder District. Mr. Punt.
Yes, thank you again. So for this, the applicant is requesting the two conditional use approvals in the CC district for a vehicle access sales and service window and the major alteration to the planned multi-use site to allow the construction of a 8,000 square foot restaurant with drive-through and then the accompanying CSM for that development. The comprehensive plan identifies the overall West Town Mall complex for RMU, regional mixed-use development, but does acknowledge that both the major mall areas may continue to be auto-oriented malls for some time. Staff notes that there have been other recent conditional use applications that have been approved as one-story buildings in areas planned for RMU. One nearby example is a roughly 7,000 square foot multi-tenant building located on the north side of this mall along Mineral Point Road, which was approved in 2020. Staff therefore does believe that the development of this one-story commercial development could be found compatible with the recommendations of the comprehensive plan. Regarding conditional use standards, because of the lack of sidewalks along the ring road, staff have concerns with this proposal meeting standard 5. The traffic engineering division is requesting the applicant add a sidewalk along the ring road frontage to build out the pedestrian network throughout the greater West Town Mall site. This is reflected in recommended condition of approval number 19 in the staff report. Future plans for the pedestrian network into which this development needs to fit will connect to the multi-use path that crosses underneath South Gammon Road to the south of this site. In summary, staff believes that the conditional use standards can be found met. In evaluating the standards, careful consideration should be given to the adequacy of the pedestrian circulation. Should the Plan Commission find that the sidewalk network is adequate, and agree with the recommendation of the Urban Design Commission, which was counter to what traffic engineering had requested to approve the development without the additional sidewalks, condition 19 should be removed as part of that motion. And again, I will be available for questions later.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Punt. We do have a couple of registrants. The first is Todd Mosher, Deal Road, Napierville, Illinois, in support, wishing to speak, representing Seritage SRT. Mr. Mosher.
Yes, good evening. Hope everybody can hear me okay.
Yes.
Yes, my name is Todd Mosier. I'm with R.A. Smith, representing the owner, Seritage SRC. This is what I would consider the next phase of redevelopment of the Sears portion of the Westtown Mall. We were before you 3 or 4 years ago when we came through with the Dave & Buster's and the Total Wine Store, as well as the Sears, which is now turning into a Hobby Lobby. This project site that we're talking about right now, for everybody's reference, is in the southeast corner of the Westtown Mall. It's the location currently occupied by the vacant Sears Auto Center building. The proposal is for a new 7,800 square foot restaurant via ground lease with Portillo's Restaurants, which I'm sure some of you are familiar with from Easttown. This is about a 1.4 acre subdivision, or CSM, carve out from the original CSM. Again, this is we're requesting this conditional use permits this evening. And we are in full support of the staff report, but as noted, there is a conflict between the UDC's recommendations and the traffic engineering division's recommendations for sidewalk. Next slide, please. So as you can see, this is kind of a detail of the Sears portion, or the former Sears portion of Westtown Mall. The dashed lines in magenta reflect essentially the proposed and most of the existing pedestrian connections. There is on the south side of the parcel I guess yellow or tan colored dash line. That's the bike path that's proposed and being built. And along the eastern edge of the proposed parcel, maybe go back to the former slide, please. There's the ring road has quite a bit of traffic on it. It's 4 lanes, 2 in each direction. It's relatively high speed, and we feel that we agree with the UDC's recommendation that we actually use the other sidewalks because they appear to give plenty of connectivity to not only the existing uses, but the proposed future uses on the other side of south of us on the ring road and the bike path.
Thank you, Mr. Mosher. That concludes your available time. Our next registrant is Melanie Bagley, Arizo Lane, Allen, Texas, in support and wishing to speak. She did not indicate that she's representing any entity other than herself. Ms. Bagley.
Good evening. I apologize. I think that may have been a user error. I am working with Portillo's. I represent Portillo's directly.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're very welcome. I think I'll just continue what Todd was saying, which is, I think we've worked well with staff on this and have had a preliminary review in front of UDC, and were met with comments that suggested they would prefer landscaping along this ring road and the sidewalk connections you see before you. When we went for formal review to UDC, what is presented to you was affirmed, that they did believe that the connections provided were adequate. Based on the exhibit, if you go to the next slide, the connections that are there, we feel make the most sense in terms of connectivity relative to where the bus stop locations are within the mall property. Our concern from a tenant standpoint is that people utilizing a sidewalk on this ring road that is, as Todd mentioned, heavily traveled and at a speed limit that is higher than maybe you would see it's a 4-lane drive, presents a safety concern. The number one thing that we have worried about the entire time staff has requested this sidewalk on the ring road was safety. Another thing to consider was, any kind of weather condition, I guess snow that would be pushed up against this curb line in the parking lot might diminish the availability of the sidewalk during the winter months, would create visibility issues, et cetera. So, in looking at this diagram, we do feel there is connectivity. It achieves the purpose of the connectivity, and we really support that. As for the site itself and for the concept itself, for Portillo's and the operations of that, I can answer any questions that any of the members may have regarding that matter. And I will yield my time to back to the city.
Thank you, Ms. Bagley.
Yes, ma'am.
No other registrants wishing to speak or available to answer questions. Are there questions of either of our two registrants? Commissioner Solheim.
Yeah, I have a question regarding the ring road. I know that the plans you have here are specific to the site and more the internal area of that, but is there planned to be any improvements to the ring road, particularly in this area around the site?
Mr. Mosher?
The ring road was improved with what I'll call phase one, the Dave & Buster's. Stormwater detention was also provided as part of that, which we're utilizing a lot of that. So a lot of those, off-site improvements have already been made. So in fact, a lot of the sidewalk connections, in fact, most of them are already in place.
Yeah, I've seen that when I've gone out. I stopped out there today. It's been a while since I left the house and went to a store, so I had to kind of remind myself of this. But I remembered as I went out there that you talk about it being a 4-lane road, but it is, as you enter the mall, there's 2 left turns to go in this direction, so there's 2 lanes of cars. But as you approach this corner, it quickly becomes like maybe 1.5 lanes, and it's, especially now, it's not being plowed as 2 lanes. The lines on the street are completely faded, so that creates just this area where people are not sure where it's 2 lanes or 1 lane. And so I'm just wondering, especially, there's a ton of potholes, so it's just kind of a precarious corner, I would say. And so that's why I was asking if there was going to be any improvements to make that truly a 4-lane road, or if it's going to be left as is.
Yeah, the width of the road will be the same. It may need to be restriped as more of a maintenance measure, but during construction we will address that.
Okay.
That's
all I have right now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Any other questions of either of the registrants? Seeing no questions, I will close the public hearing. Are there questions of staff? Any questions of staff? Seeing no questions of staff, I will ask for a motion. Commissioner Cantrell.
Yes, I will recommend that the Plan Commission find that the conditional use standards are met and approve the request at 522 South Gammon Road and 53 West Town Mall for the new Portillo's restaurant, and also approve the CSM And also, I would recommend that condition number 19 be removed as part of my motion, and because I agree with the Urban Design Committee that sidewalk seems to be redundant, in my opinion. But if I get a second, I'll talk to that.
Seconded by Alder Lemmer. Go ahead and speak to your motion, please, Commissioner.
I think that former Chair Ken Open will be very happy that the Portello's restaurant is going to be located on the west side where now he lives. But I think this is a good infill development, and one that we're going to see a lot more infill developments. And looking at the diagram that was just up on the screen, there's a lot of outlots across the street from this, and parking lots that appear to be unutilized. And I think that we're going to see a lot of development in the future on those outlots. But on the sidewalk matter, I drove out there today and I looked at it, and again, I'm a supporter of sidewalks, but I think that they seem to be redundant in this location, and I think the additional green space will be, a better use of that land. And I think if sidewalks were ever needed in the future, I think that the city has the ability to order those in, and at some time in the future. So I would just recommend that they not be included. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Sundquist.
I guess I'm breaking my rule of agreeing with everything that Commissioner Cantrell says. Like the project, sure. Let me argue in favor of the sidewalk for a minute. And Commissioner Cantrell gave implied the reason, not just for this development, it's for all those other outlots that are strung along the ring road. That's the connector of, if you look in Google Maps or some of the images that we have, there's some on both sides of the ring road, not just on the mall side. There's lots of stuff on the mall side toward the old Sears, but on the other side of the ring road. And this has come up before. When Von Mauer came to us a year and a half or 2 years ago, we kind of got rolled on it, but we didn't get completely rolled. The question there was, should there be a sidewalk on both sides of the ring road, which staff recommended, or just one? And in that case, we had an alder who I think was persuasive, but ultimately, in my opinion, probably in the wrong direction. And staff has been fighting this battle to make this pretty bad environment more walkable and pedestrian friendly and safe. Yes, you can wend your way through the parking lots to get over to the bus stop, but in the fullness of time, if this all develops, all these outlots develop, we need the ring road to function as a city street. And I don't know about the issue of the city coming back and ordering that in at some other time. I mean, that's always harder. It should be there from the get-go, and all these, as they are developed, should add their sidewalks, just like every other place that comes along, and it adds their sidewalks and improves the roadway. So I can't support it without the sidewalk. I think TE, this is my day to praise TE. I think TE has really done a good job here in evaluating this, not just for this one little chunk, but for the long haul of how this is all going to play out over time.
Thank you, Commissioner Sundquist. Commissioner Solheim.
I agree with Commissioner Sundquist on this. When I was out there today, one of the things that stuck out to me was, we have this very nice new multi-use path to the south. But if you want to follow the technically correct way to get on and off of that path, it's a pretty long journey for this site. And I could even see just in the snow footprints of people cutting through and cutting across the curve of the ring road. And so I just feel like it would be valuable from a safety standpoint to offer them that sidewalk immediately across the street and connect to the sidewalk to the north. I also think, a larger amount of landscaping, to me, it sounds nice, but landscaping in a giant parking lot does not really thrive. In my opinion, it usually dies pretty quickly. And I also noticed when I was out there being at winter and, there's a ton of surface parking, that the snow piles are just massive out there. And in terms of visibility of seeing pedestrians as you're driving around, I think it's important to provide a more safe pathway. So that's why I'm in support of keeping the sidewalks per staff recommendation.
Alder Heck.
Thank you. I'm going to agree with Commissioner Sundquist and Commissioner Solheim. Although honestly, I was leaning the other way initially. Their logic has convinced me, but I also think an important thing to consider is people take the path of least resistance. And I could see people coming off the mixed use path, the bike path, and if they want to go to Portillo's, they are going to cross the ring road where it's most convenient. And I think providing a sidewalk on the other side for where they might land is probably appropriate. And even though it's kind of a dangerous curve, as was mentioned, I think maybe in the UDC discussions and trying to not incentivize people crossing there, I just think they will, and that it's important to have that sidewalk there. And I also liked the point about in the future that sidewalk will come in handy too. But otherwise, support it. Yeah, thanks.
Commissioner Cantrell.
Well, hearing my colleagues, I guess I'm a supporter of sidewalks, I guess. So I'm going to, I guess, amend my motion if I can and remove the condition that I removed. What is it?
19, I believe.
Yeah, condition number 19. I'll include that condition in.
Okay, so you're making a motion to reinsert that. Is there a second to that amendment, seconded by Alder Lemmer?
Okay.
Is there more discussion on that amendment to his motion? If not, let's vote on the amendment to the motion. And I will assume unanimous consent to reinserting that 19 back in unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing none, we are back to then the main motion, which now includes condition number 19. Is there any further discussion? Seeing no raised hands, we will come to a vote, and I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, that motion passes unanimously. The next item on the agenda is business by members. Is there any business by members? Seeing none, then the secretary's report. Ms. Stouter.
Just a quick question before the secretary's report. Did we have a second on Cantrell's initial motion? Just want to make sure we get that.
Yeah, we did.
Lemmer? Was it Alder Lemmer? Okay, yeah. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Wanted to report back to Plan Commission, first of all, on some recent Common Council actions. So at the last meeting of the Common Council, they heard 2 appeals of your recent decisions. Actually, one was not so recent. The Edgewood appeal was unanimously upheld. They unanimously upheld the Plan Commission decision, so as not to allow stadium lighting at Edgewood High School. And then secondly, they also unanimously upheld the Plan Commission's decision at 4606 Hammersley Road for demolition and a new mixed-use building with 53 apartment units. And so that was Those were both on the same night. It was exciting night for Plan Commission issues. Looking forward to our February 8th meeting, we'll have the next phase of the Judge Doyle Square project. And this is the hotel portion in place of the now demolished Government East parking ramp. And if you haven't been down there to see that site, it's very interesting to see it without that there. And the whole demolition process was actually pretty interesting. So the proposal now is for a 260-room hotel with a sufficient amount of changes since the original approval that it will need to come back before the Plan Commission and Council for an amended plan development. The second plan development there on the list is the landfill for a vertical expansion of the Dane County landfill. And that will be going to the Urban Design Commission. Both of those projects will be going to the Urban Design Commission this week. And then the February 22nd meeting, we may see the amendment to the Triangle Monona Bay neighborhood plan. We may also see the return of the Ramish Farm development, the rezoning and plat for the Ramish Farm. We likely will not see, but it's referred to that meeting, the next item, 4205 Portage Road rezoning, that will likely be referred to a future date ultimately. And then the return of 126 Langdon Street. This is the demolition and conditional use for a 7-story, 106-unit apartment building. And then finally, a plat on the Far East Side, 6602 Commercial Avenue for Eastwood Springs, creating new lots for multifamily and mixed-use development. In our upcoming meetings beyond that, some of the special items that you'll likely see are an update on the Odana sub-area plan, and that's around West Town Mall, which we were just focused on a moment ago. And then also an informational presentation on rezonings in the Oscar Mayer special area plan area. So those will likely be coming to you in March. And I think that is all I'll share at this point. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Stouter. I would be looking then for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Commissioner Cantrell, seconded by Commissioner Hagenow. I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands to object, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it. Yeah, take care.